This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
Welcome into another episode. We've got a great one for you. We have Taylor Austin Dye, country musician, Kentucky native, doing some cool things in Nashville, hitting the road a lot, making some great music. And our tasting notes is a fun one because it's the holiday season, and we want to know about those good cocktails to make, especially maybe a little eggnog, a little spiked eggnog there. Jake Sulek joins us for tasting notes. It's a fun episode. It's a full episode. And also, if you can, give us that 5-star rating, give us a like, a follow on all of our social medias. And check out all of our past episodes because we've got a lot of great ones. Enjoy the show.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for tasting notes.
Welcome back to another tasting notes. We have with us once again Jake Sulek, beverage director, partner with Professors LLC. Jake, thanks for talking some more cocktails and fun stuff with us.
Thanks for having me back, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
Now, before we talked about pairing foods, for Thanksgiving, Christmas, now we're kind of into that Christmas season, and even New Year's is right around the corner. One of the things that I think about this time of year, or at least that comes to mind, is eggnog. Not something that I always go for because it just kind of weirds me out for whatever reason, but I know a lot of people love it. Can you tell people a little bit about eggnogs and how it kind of works with a little bit of alcohol too?
Yes. Two things jump out at me. First of all, don't be afraid of eggnog. It's delicious. When it's prepared right, it's one of the best things you can drink this time of year. Second of all, please do yourself and your friends and family a favor and never buy pre-bottled or pre-batched eggnog off of a store shelf. Not that there's going to be anything wrong with it, but it's not nearly as good as what you can make at home with just 20 minutes in the kitchen. The nog itself is a really, really old recipe. It's going back hundreds of years. The key difference between it and a lot of other egg-based cocktails is going to be it always has a whole egg. A lot of the other drinks that we talk about, such as sours, will often have an egg white in this. The eggnog is going to actually have the yolk as well. And that's, in the 1700s, that was adding protein. An eggnog was something that you'd have when you got off work to add nourishment to the body. So it always starts with a whole egg. You're going to have some sort of spirit, traditional brandy, or especially here, bourbon, whiskey, or rye makes a wonderful eggnog. You're going to have some sort of cream element. I like to use half and half. And then you're going to have a little bit of sugar. Simple syrup that you can make on your stovetop works, although I like to put a little bit of something called allspice dram, which is a Caribbean liqueur that's flavored with allspice and sometimes a little bit of cinnamon. This time of year, when we lean into the baking spices in drinks, it adds just a little bit of kick to a good eggnog.
Well, and I was going to say, I know in the past when we've talked about eggnog, what's something people need to watch out for? Because I feel like they might go back pretty easy.
So there's not a lot that you can do wrong with it. As long as you understand, the basic ingredients. There are a few kitchen things you want to be aware of. Like you don't want to accidentally put any eggshells into the batter when you're mixing it up. You want to make sure that you keep your workspace sanitary. But you can really do anything you want. There's a very famous bartender who doesn't need me to dump accolades on him out in Oregon named Jeffrey Morgenthaler, who makes an amazing tequila and sherry eggnog, which on paper looks a little bit weird, but then you drink it and it's one of the best things you've ever had. So really, it's a blank canvas. You can look at it a lot like punch. In the spring and summer, we talk about punch and how you can make it out of anything. You can dilute it down with anything. It's really about just keeping your ratios correct. Eggnog's a very similar situation. As long as you keep the same fundamental parts, you can mix and match and put anything you'd like in it.
And then, when this time of year is always celebratory as well. You got New Year's parties, even maybe a few late holiday parties for Christmas. What are maybe some good cocktails that work this time of year for whether it's a larger group or just, the type of gatherings that we're having?
I would do a fall-inspired punch. I think, and you don't have to even put it in a traditional punch bowl. Here I use, a 40 or 64 ounce pitcher when I'm making punch. But this time of year we tend towards darker rums, Islay Scotch, rye whiskey. We tend towards darker flavors, and a punch lends itself really well to this. You can use a dark aged or even a black rum as your base, lemon or lime juice for acid. You can use some fresh simple syrup, maybe add a little bit of allspice, dram to it, and then dilute it down with something like a black tea. Or, as we get closer to New Year's, I really like to dilute my punch down with sparkling wine. I think just like a nice little bottle of cava on top, add some bubbles, which adds some texture when you're drinking a cocktail. But it's something that you can do in about 5 minutes in your kitchen.
Well, and I always feel like, too, this time of year, you kind of mentioned it there with the sparkling wine, you got the sparkling cider, all of that stuff. If someone's like, I don't exactly want to ring in the New Year's with just that, what's something they could maybe, quote-unquote, spice it up with?
If you're a beer drinker, there are plenty of winter shandy options. You know, we have in the past, we talk a lot about Amaros and how it's a trending category, and everybody's mixing cocktails with it and learning in the States how to drink it. There are a lot of classic combinations when you can take a beer that would come out, a lighter style stout or Marzen this time of year, actually add a shot of some sort of orange flavored Amaro, top it up with beer, maybe add a slice of orange or a lemon to it, and you've got a great highball style cocktail that's going to be a little bit more suited to a beer drinker's taste.
I love that. I love that. And Jake, I appreciate the knowledge as always.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us now on the Bar Conversations podcast is Eastern Kentucky native, if I'm getting specific, country artist, and I think just someone that likes to have a good time. Please welcome Taylor Austin Dye. Taylor, welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, I'm glad you could come on. I know you're out on the road a lot, but I also know you like a good drink, because I'm pretty sure I saw on Instagram you were in the recording studio and literally you're recording and holding one of these in your hand.
Hey, it's good for your throat while you're recording vocals.
So,
or I like to think it is anyway. That's what I tell myself.
Hey, and I'm sure it just keeps everything loose. You're not too too stressed out, or you're just having a good time.
It just makes everything just a little bit better.
Now, what
you're not so on edge.
Now, what do you got in your glass tonight? You got anything good?
Well, I am drinking Cooper's Craft, Kentucky bourbon, and Cock and Bull for a little Kentucky Mule.
Oh,
in my little mule glass.
I was gonna say, so do you? Yeah. So do you drink it? Are you a neat person on occasion, cocktail person on occasion? Is it just kind of the mood?
Listen, I've never met any form of alcohol that I would turn down. So, I guess just, in the mood, whatever. But this is kind of like my sipping. I do a TikTok live once a week, and this is usually what I'll sip on during the live. It's just easy to gradually drink.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Now, do you do any other, I mean, you said you don't turn down a liquor, but I mean, do you like tequila, beer, anything like that too that ranks up there with the whiskey?
So my favorite tequila, it's sitting back here. There it is. Can you see it in this white bottle? So that's my all-time favorite tequila. It's called Clase Azul, and it is a reposado. Okay. So good. And the best part is it's got a little bell on. I'll just have to show you. I gotta show you. It's so cool. So it has this little silver thing on top, and when you take a shot, you ring the bell. Isn't that so cool? So yeah, that's my favorite tequila. Wow. And I'm a Miller Lite girl as far as beer. So
hey, that's what I grew up on, Miller Lite, and then I've gradually worked my way into just about everything else. My dad, Miller Lite. Give him a craft beer, he just makes a face, and just give him his Miller Lite.
Yeah. That's awesome that people love craft beer and they're so into it. I love that, but I will take my $4 Miller Lite any day.
Now you mentioned being in the recording studio lately, doing some warm ups. I joked you had this in your hand. How would you describe your music that you get to put out these days?
Well, it's been a long time coming for me to really I know it sounds cliche, but to kind of find my sound. And I've been writing songs since I was like 12 years old, so I've had a lot of practice with it. And I feel like now I'm really getting into the groove ever since I released Mean back in the end of 2019, coming up on 2 years now. I've really just started to find that groove that I love to put out, that kind of rock in, a little bit redneck, a lot of country, that southern kind of thing. And so that's what I've been really kind of leaning into lately.
Listening to it, I don't want to say a little bit of country with some attitude. And I don't even mean that in a bad way, because even on some of the, I wouldn't call them slow songs, but, the little deeper songs, you got a little attitude with it. I mean, would that be fair to say?
I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not. I don't think it is either. But yeah, I get that a lot.
Now, I remember reading you've pretty much grown up with music all your life. What got you into music? Was it family? Was it just, people playing instruments around you where you grew up? What got you into music?
Actually, no one in my family plays any kind of instrument or sings or anything like that. But ever since I was little, my mom said as soon as I started, before I even started to talk, I was always wanting to listen to music. I would just kick my legs in the car seat every time Hank Jr. would come on or AC/DC. That was two of my favorites when I was 2 years old. And I just kind of always gravitated toward music. I always wanted to have the radio on, and I started kindergarten, I guess, when I was 5, and I hated school. Absolutely hated school. I would literally cry every day, all day. And so eventually I found out that my mom found out you could take music lessons throughout the day during school. There was his name was Mr. Wilson, and he would come and pull you out of school for an hour and give you a lesson of your instrument of choice. And so I started out on the fiddle with him. It made me hate school a little bit less.
Had something to look forward to.
Yeah, I had something that I was so excited about, and so my mom actually started taking lessons with me so she could teach me along the way. And I think I passed her up after Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It was just so funny. I was like, no, Mom, this is how you do it. And so she was just like, okay, well, I'm done with lessons. You can just do it. So anyway, long story short, I started out with fiddle, and then from there I picked up mandolin, guitar, bass, a little bit of everything along the way from him. And he taught me completely by ear growing up.
That's awesome. My daughter loves, I know we were joking a little bit before I hit the record button. My daughter loves music. Unfortunately, she's not into AC/DC or Hank, even though I try. She then goes, put on my songs, and that's usually something from Frozen these days. But yeah, I have no musical ability, and I'm hoping that we can give her some. So.
Well, get them into it young, because, I think when you start that young, it's kind of built in and ingrained into you. It's a lot easier,
Absolutely, and then maybe she can have some rhythm and some more ability than me. You talked about those early influences. Were those ones that kind of stayed along the journey as you kind of became more of an artist and developed, or were there other outside influences besides an AC/DC? Other classic country or new country or anything like that?
Oh, I always was listening to classic country. When I was 5 years old, right after I guess I was about to turn 6, I actually started in Kentucky. We have a music venue called Renfro Valley, and they have weekly. You might have heard of it. It's weekly barn dances they have in Young Country, and so when I was 5, I was actually on that show, and I remember I would sing Coal Miner's Daughter, Coat of Many Colors, Loretta Lynn, Dolly, all that stuff, and I was heavily influenced by that. It was so funny because I was running around with a little tape player that had Loretta Lynn's hits on it, when I was 6 years old, and everybody else was listening to, I don't know, the Disney Lion King soundtrack or whatever. But so yeah, that was definitely a big part of growing up and being part of that kind of little community at Renfro Valley, was being around all this old time music and classic country that I fell in love with.
I was going to say, do you get to go back there often? I know they got the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame there, and obviously with what's been going on lately, it's a little harder to get to do some of that stuff. But do you still go back there at all?
I haven't been back there since I was probably in middle school, believe it or not. So, but that'd be pretty cool to go back. I should try to do that.
See, I gave a good idea, little conversation, some good ideas.
I'll credit that to you.
Now you grew up, correct me if I'm wrong, Owsley County, Kentucky.
Yes, sir.
Now, I joke because my family grew up in West Virginia. My dad, if you can find where he grew up on in the map, you are zoomed in really far. How far in are we zooming in on Owsley County?
So, to give you a little point of view, our whole county's population is 4,700. That's the whole county. We have one school, and the town it's in is called Booneville. That's our county seat. And it is population 111, and everyone goes to the same school, and we have about 300 people total from middle school to high school, and then about 300 total in the elementary preschool. So very, very small. Everybody knows everybody's business. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I won't say, but very small.
Well, but yeah. I know it's in a beautiful area. The Red River Gorge area is down there. How did growing up there and just in Kentucky in general impact you and what you do?
Well, so I grew up on a backer farm for most of my childhood. My grandparents raised all kinds of crops and tobacco, and so I grew up around that. I was on the farm with them, since I could. My papa would set me on his knee and take me to set backer up in the holler. Like, as far as I can remember, I grew up doing that kind of thing, and just being outside and really just living the country life. I have a song about it called White Oak, where I kind of highlight what it was like, and then I have a music video that we actually filmed on my grandparents' farm. So Eastern Kentucky is about as country as it gets. And I think that, I'm super glad that I grew up that way, because a lot of people don't get to experience that.
Now, do you still? I'm sure you get to visit family, but is Nashville home now, or where is home for you?
Yeah, I've been in Nashville for 4 years in January, so right at 4 years now, and I go home as much as I can. Recently I've been super busy on the road and everything, and I've not got to go home as much as I like. But yeah, when I go home, I make it a point to go up in the holler, take the 4-wheeler, take the razor, and just kind of be connected in that way. It's kind of like a little reset for me when I get to go home.
Well, I was going to say, it's not like you got a great cell service or anything else when you get down in the mountains.
Oh, no cell service. I mean, it just says no service up there where your bars are. So, yeah.
Yeah, perfect way to, kind of reset. But I feel like, though, Nashville was probably what was always going to call to you. Because, is that true? I mean, that was kind of maybe where you were just always destined to be?
So, yeah, I mentioned that I took music lessons, and then an opportunity came that he was taking some of his students down to Nashville for this little summer camp type thing in Hillsboro. And I went to that for several years, and every time I would come back home, I'd be like begging my parents, please, let's move to Nashville. Please, let's move to Nashville. And unfortunately, didn't get to, but I always was I felt so like inspired every time I would come and visit, and I just love the people and the atmosphere, and even young, like walking down Broadway, not even being able to go in the bars, but just standing at the windows, just like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. And so it's always called to me like that. Yeah.
Well, and now that you're there, what's that like? Because obviously now you can go into the bars, you can play the bars. I mean, it's a little different now, right?
Yeah, there was a point where I was playing, 11 shows a week downtown on Broadway a couple years ago, and it's fun. It's awesome. I love it. I would not trade it for anything. I know a lot of people like hate on it. It's like, I played Broadway and it was rough and I paid my dues, but you know what? I just look at it like this. I don't want to ever be sitting behind a desk doing desk work. So to me, even the worst Broadway gig 4 hours with nobody in the bar. I would rather do that any day than sit at a desk. So
Well, and
that's kind of my take on it.
And I was gonna say, it seems to be working out just fine. It seems to be everything seems to be moving in the right direction. Now, you talked about this, with the song White Oak, drawing on past experiences, family life. Is that typical for you when you're writing, or does it just come from an idea, or is it a little bit of a combination depending on kind of what's striking you at the time?
Sometimes I'll write about experiences. Sometimes I'll just get honestly, I don't really have a rhyme or reason for anything that I write. It's just kind of like, it could be, I could hear someone say something walking down the hall, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta write that. So, I don't really have rhyme or reason, but White Oak, definitely from experience. My newest single, Water Me Down, definitely from experience. The song Means about my mom, but then, I guess Good Time Girl is semi sort of, I had like a experience that led to that. So I guess, yeah, I do tend to write about experiences, but also my next single that's coming out is not from experience. It's just kind of from an idea. So I would say a little bit of both.
I was going to say, then nothing wrong with that. Now, do you write all of your songs, or do you have writing partners, or kind of go out of, especially with as much traveling as you do, I'm sure sometimes it's hard to find the time to really, get in a writing groove.
Yeah, so most of my songs I've written myself. I enjoy writing by myself. It's not that I don't enjoy co-writing that much, but I'm just really I liked getting really involved with the song, and sometimes I want to take 2 or 3 days, a week, 2 weeks on it. Whereas I feel like if you're in a writing room with a co-writer, you're kind of pressured to churn something out in 4 hours, whether it's good or not. And I kind of like the freedom to think, okay, really digest each line and say, is this what I want to say? Is this getting my point across? Is this the best way to say it? And so I kind of like to sit with my songs for a while. So that's why I kind of like writing by myself.
Well, and I've asked this to others before, because I feel like when you're writing, and as someone that's done more of the written word of stories and things like that in some of my jobs, sometimes it starts out really good, other times not so good. I mean, are there ever times where you look back at things you wrote and go, what happened that day?
Oh, I'm like, this is wet, hot garbage. Like, sometimes it's just so bad, and I'm like, what? I don't even know where I was trying to go with this, but I'll scrap it and start new and maybe take a line out of it, and it ends up fine. But sometimes, yeah, it's just not good.
Now, do you have someone that you can
I will not lie about that.
bounce these things off of too? Go, hey, is this good or am I crazy?
Yeah, so I mean, living in Nashville, obviously, I have a ton of artist friends, and me and my best friend, we're always sending each other work tapes and demos. Like, hey, is this good, or is it just 3 a.m. and I'm crazy right now? So we'll just be sending each other stuff back and forth, and just kind of getting each other's ideas. And sometimes we'll say, oh, what if you change it to this? This wording's a little weird. So it is good to have artist friends that you can kind of bounce those ideas off of.
And be truthful.
Yes. Oh, I'm always very truthful because I would want someone to be truthful with me.
Now I know recently you were up in Kentucky doing a show, I think in Richmond. I looking at your itinerary, it looks like you do a lot of traveling. I mean, how is that? What's it like to be on the road and get to go to so many different places?
So it was kind of crazy this year. It was my goal to really in 2020, honestly, it was my goal to do a lot of touring and get out there. So obviously we know that did not happen. So in 2021, I signed with a booking agent in January, and I've been working with her, and she is fantastic. I told her I want to go everywhere. I want to meet everybody. Like, I want to meet all my fans. I want to go to where they want me to come. So she has been really busting her butt, getting me a lot of shows. So I think we've been to 11 states this year so far. So and I want to do it all. So it is, it's awesome. The driving a lot is a little tiresome, obviously, because I'm not in a tour bus or even a van. I'm driving my Kia Soul to my gigs. So Ben is my acoustic duo partner, and he plays drums with me. So we've been going around to playing these shows in that kind of setup. So it's just me, him, his drum kit, my guitar, in a Kia Soul, just hitting the road. So this weekend, I think we're driving 9 hours to Kansas. So that should be, it's a long haul, but honestly, it's all worth it. I love it so much. I'm happy to be going.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you talked about, performing 11 shows in a week, a few years ago. What is it about performing that's like your favorite part, or just something that kind of keeps you always coming back to that?
Live performing is my favorite thing about music. Like, I could care less about social media. I love it, and I love what I do on TikTok and Instagram and that. But live performing is like what I truly love. When I'm on stage, like, that's my favorite thing ever. Like, the feeling, the energy in the room, and just like the best thing ever is when you have people singing your own songs back to you. And like, I think I'm just always chasing that high of like hearing people sing my lyrics back to me, because there's honestly nothing that feels better than that.
Well, and I can only imagine, because I will never have that. Can't carry a tune, so that'll never happen for me. You mentioned you've gotten to 11 states. What's the coolest place, whether it's performing or just being able to visit, that you've gotten to go with kind of this, being able to be on tour now?
Honestly, I mean, it just amazes me that people will come out just to see me. Like, I have people coming out just to see me, and like, we played some shows back a few months ago in like Florida, and then all these people showed up to the bar, packed the bar out, and they're like, yeah, we're here to see you. And I was like, you're not just here on vacation? They're like, no, we drove here to see you. And I was like, and then people would be like, oh, we drove 3 hours to be here. Like last weekend, these people drove 3 hours to come to my show, and it's still just such a shock to me. It's like, people want to come and see me. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, honestly, I can't even pick a favorite, because any place that's like that is just like so humbling and just such a cool experience for me.
Well, I was going to say, as a marketing guy, if you came up with this, family member, you're calling your fans ride or dies with, the off of your last name, that is genius. I love that. And it sounds like they're loving it. I mean, that's just got to be so cool to be able to interact with them and not knowing all the time exactly what you're going to get into, because you are going to some far off places, from at least home base.
And it's crazy, because I actually have a few fans that have started a Ride or Die page on Facebook, and then a Ride or Die Instagram page. And so, like, anytime when people come out to my shows, they'll tag their Ride or Dies in it, or they'll say, oh, Ride or Die's in the house at wherever. And like, so they're all getting to meet each other and connect. Like, when they're on my TikTok lives and talking to each other in the comments, but it's awesome to see them meet each other and hang out at my shows. And it's kind of like this big community, like this big family, like you said. And it's just, I love seeing that.
Well, that is awesome. And I'm going to refill, and just, we were talking about this. I got some Elvis whiskey. I'm going for another one. So, it's got to be worthwhile.
It must be all right, man.
So now you talk about TikTok. I know you do the weekly live. You also just seem to have some fun, but how has that been? Because I know, was it Water Me Down or which song kind of you put it up there, weren't sure, and the next thing you knew, it kind of popped off?
Well, actually, the last two singles that I released kind of happened like that. It started out, I've only been on TikTok for like a year and a half. I started it mid-year last year, and I posted just a cover, and then it got like 300,000 views, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I should post, some more stuff on there. And then Good Time Girl was the song that I posted that kind of it did some big numbers, and everyone was like, release this right now. So I was like, okay, I'll release it. So I ended up releasing it. It did super well for me, ended up charting. CMT picked up the video. Like, that was kind of my song that kick-started everything. And then I'll post all kinds of original stuff on there, but Water Me Down, I hadn't even finished the song yet, and I posted the first verse, and people were going crazy over it. So ended up recording that. It charted number 22, and just, it's been getting me a lot of attention. Like, it's been getting radio play, which I didn't even know about. So everyone's like texting me saying, I just heard you on the radio. And I was like, where? What station? Who? Like, I didn't even know this was happening. So People are really liking that one, and it's getting a lot of streams, and it's doing really well for me. So TikTok is where it's at.
Well, I mean, that's got to be also kind of reassuring too. Like if you put something up and you get the good feedback, then obviously, again, that's another affirmation of that. Okay, this is good. Let's get it out there.
And it feels good to know, like, okay, I'm on the right track, because you know, at the end of the day, I want to write music that I love and I'm proud of. But when other people are actually like into it as much as you are, then that's just the icing on the cake.
Now you mentioned Mean. I've been playing. I like to listen to everything before a chat and make sure I'm. And that song has some fun lines. But what did you say to your mom when you're like, "Hey, I wrote this song about you"?
Well, so we always joke with her because she cannot drink any kind of bourbon, any kind of whiskey, anything dark. Like, she is not good. Like, it's bad. So she drinks vodka. She drinks Tito's. That's what she likes, to mix a little fruity drink, you know. And so I got this idea for Jim Beam Makes Me Mean. And then I was like, oh, this is my mom. So I just started thinking, like, what happens when mom drinks dark liquor? And so that's kind of how that song kind of unfolded. And I remember I wrote it in the car on the way back to Kentucky. And so when I got home, I was going back to visit my mom. So I immediately just busted in the door, went and grabbed a guitar, started playing. And I figured it out, and I was like, Mom, I wrote this song about you. And she was like, oh my gosh, really? Let me hear it. And I played it, and she was just crying, laughing the whole time. She thought it was the funniest thing ever. So no, she's totally cool with it. She's such a good sport.
Well, I love that, but it's such a great song, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's just some good attitude in it. Same with good time girl. I mean, you don't want to be the good time girl. Don't water me down. I mean, there's just so much thought put into those, and you come through. And I was listening to you on a different podcast, and this is probably the highest compliment I can give an artist. What you sounded like there is what you sound like on the track, and that is awesome to hear. Because sometimes you go, wait, that's not what I was expecting. But it comes across so good, no matter how you're performing it. And I just love that.
Well, I appreciate that so much, because I spent a lot of time, playing live, and I want that to be, heard, that it is the same. I'm not going in there and they're not completely just auto-tuning the shit out of it, or, I want that to come across. So that is a huge compliment for me. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I was listening to that, and when I was writing down stuff, I was like, no, her music, it's you, comes through everything. I love that. Now, obviously growing up, this is probably something you wanted to do. Music is something that you love. Did you ever think that it could be a career, and that you'd be releasing, songs, working on album, going on tours, doing shows? Did that ever cross your mind?
Yes, I 100% my whole life thought I was going to be a rock star. So I didn't really even have a backup plan. I went to college for music, minored in business. So yeah, I still don't have a backup plan. So let's just cross our fingers.
Well, I was going to ask, what would you be doing if you weren't doing music? So it'd be music of some sort then.
Honestly, after I graduated college, I worked in radio for like a year and a half, and I had my own drive time slot. I had a whole show called Songbird Radio, 3 hours, and I would take callers, and it was just like a really fun job. And I'm not saying I would be doing that, but that's also music related. So I really liked that, though. It was fun, and I would do it again.
And you talked about being able to perform. You do put up some covers on TikTok. I mean, if someone does get to go to a show, obviously they're going to hear originals. They're going to hear anything else that you just love to play?
Yeah, so my shows are really, unless it's a showcase where it's specifically to showcase your original music, my 3 and 4 hour shows are a healthy mix of originals and covers. If you go on Broadway, you're going to hear mostly covers. But, places like, I'm playing at the Crimson Moon, for example, in January. So you'll hear probably 50-50 covers and original stuff. So it just depends on the venue, but, I'm always going to slide some original stuff in there. Yeah.
Well, and then to wrap it all up, 2022 is coming around the corner. It's kind of crazy to think we're it's another year gone by. But what can folks expect from you? Some more music, maybe full album? What do we got? Put you on the spot. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'll tell you, I have 3 new songs coming out. The first one in line is January 6th. So starting then, and then I'm not going to give too much away, but starting January 6th will be my first single of the new year out of 3. So
awesome.
I'm very excited. And then, of course, we're going to be hitting even more shows in 2022, even more states, and more venues. So I'm really looking forward to all things. And there's some things that I cannot talk about, but I really want to. So just know that there are things in the works, and I'm really excited for all of it.
Well, I love the tease. If nothing else, it gives people something to pay attention to look forward to. And if you want to find more about Taylor, go to find her on social media. She's smart, at Taylor Austin Dye across them all. Very simple. Mm-hmm. Even on the web, you can find shows, everything like that. Check her out on TikTok Live. But that's every Thursday, right? Is that when you're doing your TikTok Lives? Try to at least.
It's usually anywhere between Tuesday and Thursday.
Gotcha. Midweek. Midweek,
yes. Midweek is when I try to do it because my schedule's so crazy. I can't commit to one day, but I'm actually doing TikTok Live after we hop off here.
Well, awesome. Well, Taylor, this has been a blast. Thank you for having a drink with me, and I can't wait to see what new music you got coming out.
Hey, thanks for having me.